Welcome to Soul Searchers. I'm Ricky.
And I'm Brian.
And today we're here at the property of the Tennessee Children's Home, located in Spring Hill, Tennessee. We're going to bring you the history of Ferguson Hall.
And with us is Bill Alsop. He is the Director of Development for the Tennessee Children's Home and Ferguson Hall.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Bill.
You're very welcome.
So Bill, I have to say, as I was driving into the property, I noticed the placard over here that mentions Van Dorn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that placard represents?
That placard represents the fact that General Earl Van Dorn was a Confederate general that was placed here by the Confederate Army to sort of head off some of the Union activities, and while he was here in Spring Hill, he became romantically involved with another man's wife, and the other man murdered him in our house.
Right there in Ferguson Hall.
In Ferguson Hall, that's correct.
And when was that?
That was in 1863.
Wow.
Yeah, May 7th, 1863.
And Bill, I'd like to think I'm a pretty in-style guy, but looking at your clothing here, I must have missed something. So why are you dressed like this exactly?
Well, as the historian for Ferguson Hall, I do portray the owner of the house that had it built in 1852 and 53, Martin Chairs. And so I welcome guests as they come in as Martin Chairs.
All right.
So we're in the front entrance, correct?
Correct.
Of Ferguson Hall, and if it isn't, it certainly looks like it is because it's very grand. And obviously, the first thing I have to ask you is, you know, it's so beautiful with all of these large pillars and all of the detail work, which you don't see in structures built today. So do you have any knowledge as to where that comes from?
There was a period of time there in the mid-1800s where Greek Revival architecture was very prevalent, and of course buildings like Ripavilla and Oak Lawn and Elm Springs and in Columbia and several other houses around this area in Middle Tennessee were built as Greek Revival structures, and so that was what this one was modeled after. And of course this house was built simultaneously with Ripavilla.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of the common theme that we're seeing here is some of these other homes that we visited, they're all looking pretty much identical. You know, there's a few differences, but
right.
They're all that Greek style
Yes.
building.
Right. And,
were those locations built by the same builders?
No, they weren't. They were built by different ones. But again, it was the style that was popular at that period, and so the various builders were very skilled at making it happen. And it's interesting that most of this work was done with millwork right on site. You didn't order these from a manufacturer to be shipped in. They were actually made on site. And the bricks were made right here in Spring Hill as well.
Oh, wow.
So that's trees that they're cutting down in the area to build this home.
That's correct.
And how long would it take to construct a structure like this?
This house was begun in October of 52, and it was completed by December of 53. So
wow.
You're looking at maybe 12 to 15 months.
Okay.
And that's why I think it was different builders building it, because a different builder built Ripavilla than built this house.
Oh, okay. And obviously it took that long too, because they really put a lot of attention to the detail.
Exactly.
And it sounds like making sure that they were using the best local products
Exactly.
to make it.
Right. And the wood that was used in the house was probably cut right here in this area. Poplar, cedar, white ash, all of these woods are used in the house at particular points. The white ash was used for floors and doors. It's hardest of the woods, and then the cedar was used around the windows and the door frames because it was weather resistant and lasted a long time. And the poplar was used on the floors because that was also a very hard wood, and so the floors in the main house are made out of poplar.
Wow. So why don't you come on and join us as we go inside?
All right, I'm with Bill again, and we're going to talk about the contract for the home. sort of similar to contracts today, but maybe not so detailed as they are today.
That's correct. Basically, the homeowner would describe how they wanted what they wanted in the home, and the builder would specify in the contract the kind of wood he would use, the bricks that he was going to use, and everything was kind of agreed upon ahead of time. In fact, the house was, this is the contract, it's a page and a half, handwritten between Martin Chairs, the homeowner, and Daniel McLaughlin, who is the builder, bonded builder, and they agreed upon a price of $4,170. Wow. And so that was the price, and in here he specifies everything that he will do. And there's an exception in here, the fine print, you know, it says except he didn't wallpaper, he didn't paint, and he would not install locks. And historically, Mr. McLaughlin shared with Mr. Chairs that by him as the homeowner installing the locks, he had the assurance that he had the only set of keys. Okay. So it was a security thing. But the contract did call for the house to be completed by Christmas of '53, which they were able to do. And another thing that was common in those days, the homeowner didn't necessarily put up the money to build the house. The builder built the house, and then the homeowner paid for the house when they were happy and living in the home. You can't find that in today's contracts. It's generally money, money, money up front, and a lot of signatures, but this one only has 2 signatures, Martin Chairs and Daniel McLaughlin.
Now, would they have to pay all of that at the end of the deal? There was no financing like you would have today, obviously.
So, you know, Mr. Chairs, obviously a well farmer with a plantation. He and his brother Nathaniel down here. The plantations were the main order of business in the community. The McKissicks, of course, we mentioned earlier, that were brick builders, block layers, rock layers. The foundation of the house here is 2 feet wide, and it's all limestone rock, and there's a foundation of every wall. Wow. And so interior and exterior walls.
Which you'd only find today on the outside. Perimeter of the house.
That's exactly right. And so that's pretty much defined here. The colors that we've chosen to use in the house in the restoration, building it back the way it was in the 1850s and 60s, are period appropriate. We had a gentleman named John Kaiser who worked with us, and he did that work free of charge to the Ferguson Hall, and he just helped us with that. He actually purchased some things that we have in the house that are period appropriate, and some of the furniture that we have that's been donated. For instance, the piano has been placed in the house. It has not been given to us, but it's been placed here by a family that now lives in Montana. Okay. And so this is 1851 Dawson Son grand piano. We have a clock on the mantle in the other room from 1821. We have a Jefferson drop leaf, and we have another piece. The oldest piece in the house is a corner cupboard, which is in the other room. We can take a look at that a little later. It was built in 1800s. Okay. And this picture here,
yes, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, well, this was taken in 1926, and of course, no color photography in those days, but it does capture that. And for instance, the shutters on the house have, at one time they were painted bright white. Correct. But that was not common. They basically kept them a dark green or black. And so that's what we've done here. We've got them dark green.
So that house, that picture's taken roughly, let's say 50 plus years after the house had been built.
That's almost, yeah, it would have been made almost 75 years.
Correct. So, and it still looked in great shape in that time.
It did. And of course it captures some things. This area back here in the back, you see the porch, that would have been where the kitchen and everything were back there. Sometimes they referred to it as the L.
Was that a common thing?
Yes.
That not to put it inside the home?
Yes, they did that because if there was a fire,
correct,
it might be in the kitchen, and so they wanted to have it out
Makes
there.
sense, yeah.
Separate. Same thing at Rippleville and some of these other places. Their kitchens are located out away from the house.
All right, Bill. We're going to talk a little bit about the fun stuff, which is the history with the Civil War. 1863, the Confederates had this area right here. Van Dorn was the general at the house here. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what happened?
Well, he was a cavalryman. Okay. And he had been known for his expertise in that, fighting the battle at Corinth, Mississippi, and of course his troops were just set up all along the hill here, and he was headquartered here. They had Usually had 3 horses tied up out here for couriers to deliver messages between the units. And there were other Southern troops back over here toward Oaklawn, and that way, and then where the battlefield of Spring Hill is located now, the cannon, there were a lot of Confederate troops there.
And to give everybody kind of a point of reference, behind us would be to the west, we have Main Street, we have City Hall up on the hill, Home Depot. So from basically Kedron Road over to this side is where the Confederates
That's correct.
Had.
And the other side.
And the other side as well.
Yes,
okay. Until 1864.
That's right. In 1864, the Confederates still were positioned south of Kedron and over around what is now the crossings.
Okay.
They were in that area, and of course everything was kind of at a stalemate there, and then the Union started moving through. There was an Ohio artillery battalion in here,
okay,
and the Union officers occupied the house. There were 5 batteries of cannons that were positioned from town center up on the ridge there, came all the way across and went out this way with those 5 batteries, and each one of those batteries had 4 cannons, and so those guys were going off there. And then when Schofield started advancing through here, they started shooting there on November the 29th of 64, and one of those batteries recorded 166 volleys or cannon balls that they shot out over toward the Confederates.
Wow. And how long of a time would that be?
That would have been probably a day and a half.
Wow.
And they were basically holding them away while the Union troops moved on through and headed north. And and then we had the Battle of Franklin, Nashville, and but that was the activity of the Civil War during with Spring Hill being involved.
And Spring Hill played a real pivotal part in the North, making it back up to Nashville, or to Franklin, I'm sorry.
Right, they did.
Because they made it through this area.
That's correct. And of course it was the Confederate soldiers that were here that died ultimately at Franklin. And that was a pretty bad battle out there. A lot of Union and a lot of Confederate boys died there. And our cemetery over here has at least 39, I think, of Confederate soldiers. For a long time, no one knew exactly where they were, and they were rounded up at different cemeteries, and they are buried here in our Spring Hill Cemetery now, just to the north of us here.
Now, the Union soldiers, would they have been buried in the same cemetery, or would they? What would they do with
Most
that?
of the time, they would have been buried in a common grave somewhere, probably.
Okay.
And then maybe later shipped somewhere else. Again, they would try to get them back to their families if they could. War does crazy things, and so that didn't always happen. Just like with these, many of these Confederate boys were buried in church cemeteries around different locations, and it was in the late 1800s there was an effort to collect all of them and bring them back here. Yeah. And so there's a nice memorial there in our cemetery for the Confederate soldiers.
Okay, so now we're in the room that is just off of the entrance, and can't help but notice all these lovely dining tables here. So do you normally have it laid out like this?
These tables are here for us to serve our guests when they come in on tour groups. We are the last stop on a progressive dinner that the Visitors Bureau puts together. And they come here, they get cake and coffee or water or tea or whatever is the last stop for their desserts. And
that's great.
They also get a story about this room.
Yeah, and the history, right?
Yeah.
So how, if someone was interested in being able to take that tour, how do they go about doing that?
2 ways. One is they can contact the Visitors Bureau and find out if they're putting one together locally.
Okay.
They usually do at least that sometime toward Christmas. And then if they want to, if they got a group, I usually will take 6 or 8 or more, and I'll have groups come here by appointment. They call us here at the children's home, and I can provide that for them.
Oh, great, great. Okay, so now getting on to the history, especially of this particular room, has quite a bit of historic story behind it, correct?
Yes, that is true.
And that relates mostly back to Van Dorn, which we were speaking of earlier
right.
with the plaque
Right.
in the front entrance.
Yes, this room was the room that he was living in. He first came to Spring Hill when they positioned him here in Middle Tennessee. They first came to Spring Hill, stayed at White Hall, which is down here off of Duplex. And that's when the affair started between the general and Jessie McKissick Peters. And she happened to live in a house that looked just like that. That's a painting of the house right over here on the wall.
Oh, okay.
That's the Peters house. And she lived over there, and that house sat about a half a mile behind the house here.
Behind this house. Okay, and it's
Right.
still there?
No, it burned back in the 1950s, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
no longer there. He was staying at Whitehall. Jessie went down there, and she wanted to meet him, and the affair started. Mrs. White didn't take kindly to the affair taking place at her house, so she asked her husband to relocate the general. And he came down here and he says, "Martin, you know, can you put the general up?" And we said, "Well, we'll close the pocket doors, put him in this back parlor here." And he had his cot located on that wall, the wardrobe over here, a washstand back here, and a field desk similar to the one in the corner there was positioned right here by the window.
Oh, okay.
And he also had chairs that were lined up here, about 10 chairs for his officers to come in. He'd brief his staff here. But it was also very convenient because he could look out across the field and see when she would wave the lantern that he could come over and visit.
Right.
You know? So that's kind of a little story off
Kind
the
of
side.
hiding him in the back part of the
Yeah.
house, but at the same
Yeah.
time making
Yeah.
it more convenient.
He liked
the
it. I
affair.
think he enjoyed that very much because it was better than being at Whitehall because he had no visual sight to the Peters house. But when Dr. Peters came back to town, Dr. Peters had given up his medical practice to be in the state legislature, and he was the state legislature during the war, moved from Nashville to Memphis, and so he's over there. She's his third wife. His first wife died before their first anniversary. The second wife bore him 7 children, and then she passed, and he needed somebody to take care of his kids. And this was common in those days. A man would marry somebody just for the convenience of having somebody take care of his kids. He had 7.
And we did say 7.
7, yes,
Right.
there were 7 children there, and and she was also a cousin by a previous marriage, so that was just one of the things that happened back in the 1800s. But when he came back to town, Mrs. White made sure that he knew that the general and Jessie had been inappropriate, and so he told Miss Jessie he was going to Chevyville for some business. He'd be back in 3 days. Well, the next night he steps up on the porch. The general is already over there, and there's a confrontation, and everybody pretty much agrees that the doctor told the general, "You show up over here again, I'll blow your brains out." And so we found out later that the doctor said he wanted the general to put in writing that he had been the aggressor, that he had taken unfair advantage of a poor, naive young housewife. And so on the morning of May 7th, he showed up over here to get that written statement. And the doctor later told us, he said, he read the first statement, and I could have lived with that. And the second statement, my blood began to boil. And when he read that third statement, I meant to shoot him right between the eyes. But he ducked, and the bullet went in over his left ear and lodged in his forehead. And he collapses there. The doctor simply walks out.
Right here
on his
desk.
At his desk, and of course that's why the blood stains are back here.
Okay.
And so the doctor simply went out, got on his horse, and this time he really did ride to Chevyville. And he got over there, and Leonidas Polk, who was commanding the unit over there, said, "You got to keep riding." So he went on back through and got back to Memphis. He divorced Miss Jessie for abandoning him and his family. Of course, Miss Jessie's still back here in Spring Hill taking care of his 7 children. The doctor never was tried. He was detained once, but he always said it was a justifiable killing because he violated the sanctity of my home.
So we're now in, is there a name for this room, or?
This room is actually going to be referred to as the children's home room,
Oh,
because
okay.
we've got pictures of the children's home, some of the early pictures that were taken of the kids from the home, and of course that picture over there shows a child and a person sitting in front of a fireplace.
Okay, and this is right off the main entrance.
Main entrance, right.
And you have a few kind of paranormal stories that supposedly happened in this room.
Well, one of them happened in here. I'm going to tell you first of all, when the Branham and Hughes Academy was using this as a dormitory, for their students. The older boys would often play tricks with the younger boys, particularly their first night or two here, by making groaning sounds and extra stompings on the floor and this sort of thing.
Trying to
scare the younger boys. And they always would throw in the fact that, you know, I'm looking for the gun that shot me and this sort of thing. And so they were trying to imply that the general still occupied the house, or at least his spirit still occupied the house.
Right.
Now, when we started the restoration process back in 2003, we had a house manager that lived in the house for a couple of years, and while she was here, she would often set up this room with the table, and it was usually one of the round tables with the silverware and so forth. And she had one set up one evening, all ready for the next day.
And this would be for a dinner party?
This was a dinner party here,
okay.
And so that she had everything all set up. And the next morning when she came down, all of the silverware on one side of the table had been pushed over to the other side. And I don't think the ground was vibrating that much that it would cause the silverware
yeah,
to do
I would hope not.
But you know, that gives me goosebumps thinking about that. But,
sure.
You know, that was just something. Laura stayed here in the house for 2 years, and she never had any other experiences like that one.
Okay.
So.
Well, we are going to do a little ghost investigation of the entire property. So if you want to join us, then stick around.
All right, we're beginning with our investigation upstairs, Ferguson Hall. First, we'll just start off with a little bit of silence, even though we can still hear an air conditioning unit running. If there's anybody there, can you make a noise? We're not here to harm you in any way. All right, just for the record, the lights just flickered. If that was you, could you do it again? Maybe it was an anomaly or something. All right, we're going to move on to the next room. If there's anybody there, can you make a noise or touch one of us?
I thought I just, unless you just exhaled like a sigh right over here, I thought I heard just a little something. Was there?
Wow, it's really cold over here though. I don't see any vents.
The windows are really cold, and we're in
It is
August.
really now, unless
The vents up
it
there.
could be blowing down.
Yeah, this whole side of the room has felt pretty chilly to me, but that window just seems to really be cold for this time of year. Do you have a problem with us hanging out in here? A lot of people have lived here over the years.
All right, we're moving on to the next room. If you're here and you're not going to contact us, this is your chance to do it. We don't mean you any harm. Would this upset you if I laid on your bed here or just kicked back on your bed?
And we are just above the room where Van Dorn was shot. I mean, we are literally, like, about 14 feet above where he died. So, General, if you happen to be around, maybe you shouldn't have been messing with other men's wives.
That's right.
Or maybe it was just really unfair that he got so worked up.
All right. Have a seat real quick and see if we can
Yeah.
draw up anything here.
All right, get propped up here.
Can you get us both in it?
Yeah, just a sec. Okay.
All right, we're sitting on your couch here, relaxing in your home. Surely that would not make you happy.
Or if you like having guests, let us know that you're here and that you appreciate the company.
Just talking to this little orange light. Take our energy to talk. We're all right with that.
So we're here on the first floor doing our ghost investigation. That's Ricky and Josh doing this investigation part, and Brian and Andy covered the second floor. So we're just going to cover the first floor,
Okay.
and go from there. If you want to grab the camera, and we'll move around the first floor. Okay, so I'm going to start off just making it known that we're here, and of course Josh, chime in if you want to at any given time. So my name's Ricky and I'm here with Josh, and if we have any souls here at Ferguson Hall that would like to be known, we would like to know that you're here. And we don't mean any harm. We come in peace. We're just seeking information, seeking history. And so if you are here, if you can let us know. That beep that we're hearing, I think, is a smoke detector. And I think I was hearing some outside noise out in the back entrance. I'm going to take just a few pictures too on here. General Van Dorn or Martin Chairs, Jesse McKissick Peters, Miss White, if any of you have a presence here, we would like to know. Let me turn my audio recorder on. Van Dorn, you were shot here in this very room. Have any regrets? Let's come over this way just because we didn't really go into this part of the village. Is there anybody here with us? I have an audio recorder going as well as a video camera. Let's head this way over to the room where they said that there may have been a few incidences. You can just kind of scan the room a little bit. I'm just going to sit still for a second. Are there any entities that are present that want to let something be known? Okay, the light just flickered. I wonder if that's the same light that was flickering. Or no, it wasn't, because they were upstairs.
Yeah. Let's see who does it again.
Was that someone trying to tell us something, or just an electrical current with the light flickering? If someone is here, can you flicker the chandelier light again? What is that, all the children sound coming from?
In the front, I guess.
But what is that? It's pretty late. It's like 8 o'clock at night. Do you see anything out there?
Not in the front, no.
Seems kind of odd, because it's school night. Well, let's walk this way into the kitchen. I'm not really feeling anything,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
I can usually sense
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. So got your little light thing there in here. This obviously is a little bit more of a modern kitchen in here. However, that fireplace doesn't look modern. And truth of the matter is that I've always heard, and I've even experienced many times, that when sometimes paranormal experiences happen more frequently in a room that has been redesigned and and modernized and all of that, because that kind of stirs things up, and they don't like that so much. They want things to be the way they were when they were familiar with the location. I think I'm just primarily hearing outside sounds outside. This must have been that hallway that they were talking about that led. Remember they said there used to be a doorway that led out through to the back where the kitchen was? I bet this bathroom wasn't here, and this was the hallway that led to the back door, I bet. And this might just lead it back into leads back into the kitchen. Well, let's just stand here for just a minute and give a few more minutes of silence. Well, we will be leaving this beautiful location in just a few minutes. So this is your last chance if there is any presence here that wants to be known. Well, we're here still at Ferguson Hall. We just wrapped up our ghost investigation with the Soul Searchers crew. And does anybody experience anything thus far? I know we still have to go through the camera footage and the audio recording, but did anybody?
Me and Andy really didn't notice anything. It actually felt extremely calm in there, very relaxing. So we didn't really catch anything that we know of.
Okay, Josh and I think is the same thing.
It seemed pretty calm, just a light flicker, but other than that, not really anything.
Yeah, we did have a light flicker, but that can always be electrical surge. And,
Certainly.
And so now that doesn't, of course, mean that we won't find something on some of the footage later on.
Exactly.
And if so, after we've searched through all of that, then we will include that in our footage. But please join us again as Soul Searchers continues to find stories of the past, ghost, paranormal stories, and more history.